Okay.
Yeah.
So switching back to jungle now, do you have, besides the backside of water, do you have a favorite joke that you would tell?
Uh,
Even one that you wrote?
yeah, it was one of my jokes, and I didn't let other people do it for the longest time, and I don't think anyone's ever done it since because maybe it's not that funny. Maybe it's because I taught history, so I liked history and politics and whatnot. But you're coming up to the waterfall, right, to Schweitzer Falls, and you make that sharp right-hand turn
Yep.
the first time. And I come up and say, everybody, lean to the right, lean to the right, lean to the right. It's okay, it's Orange County. You can lean to the right in Orange
Huh.
County. And if there were locals on the boat, they would get a big laugh out of it. And if they were tourists, they would just stare at me like, why is that funny? So thought it was a good joke. People that got it, and people that didn't get it wouldn't know what I was talking about. So that
Okay.
was my that was my favorite. That was my favorite joke. And I tell this in one of the Skipper Stories books. Do you know who Billy Idol is?
Yeah, I know the name. I'm not crazy about like the music scene, but
Okay, he's a 80s pop star icon,
mhm.
Billy Idol. He's from England, and he was on my boat once.
Really?
He was sitting in the front with his group, and I did that joke. And I think arrogantly of myself. I looked down at him. I'm like, I bet Billy didn't get that joke. He's from England. He didn't get that joke. And I looked down at him, and he's leaned over to his group of people. He's like, see, Orange County's conservative, like Margaret Thatcher and the Tories. And he's explaining why Orange County, California is conservative. And I'm like, listening to him, and I'm like, Billy, you're killing it. And I
Wow.
drove right by one of the elephants and realized I'd missed a joke. And I'm like, I should do my job. So I leaned back and I started doing my jokes again. But I'm like, Billy Idol, good on you, man.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but that was one of my favorite jokes. Yeah.
Did you
And
ever get the chance? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
oh, no, no, go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Did you ever get the chance to do like an autograph or a picture with him? I know at Universal that's forbidden. Like cast members can't do anything with
Yeah.
celebrities unless the celebrities ask.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah. No pictures with them. Never asked for anything. And it's I think that's part of also growing up in the LA area is that you
Mhm.
don't care about celebrities. You see them, you're like, yeah, you want to be left alone, and I'm not impressed with your lousy TV show, so or
Wow.
whatever. So you just don't. You're not super impressed with people.
They're just
Um,
another person.
yeah, and at Disneyland once, like I'm not a huge basketball fan, but once I was working a parade shift, and a manager points at me from across the street and is waving me over. And I'm like, yes, like you're tall, come here. I'm like, okay, he'll stand in front of this magic shop, and it was Kobe Bryant was in there
Oh
when he was with
wow.
playing with the Lakers, and he was there with his family, and people were banging on the glass yelling Kobe, and they had closed the magic store so we could shop with his kids. So they had me stand in front of the store, and I'm like, everybody back up. And they all backed up. And I'm like, this is not a pet show. And he is not an animal. Leave him alone. And they all kind of,
Wow.
oh, and they all just kind of stood there. And like, but I remember watching Kobe Bryant thinking, that would suck to be that famous where you can't go anywhere without
Mhm.
people just yelling and screaming and hounding you. So you'd see celebrities that really wanted to like dress down and not be noticed.
Right.
And so, like a buddy of mine had Michael Douglas and Catherine Zeta-Jones on his boat, and they
Wow.
went through the regular line.
That's crazy.
Usually, the celebrities come up the exit and
Yeah.
like, I'm a celebrity and I want my own boat. Like, and they want special. They have all these demands, but there's some like them that just get in the regular line. And my buddy saw it, and then Michael Douglas looked at him and just kind of smiled and nodded and put his head down, and just gave him a regular, tour like everybody else. So yeah, you get. Um, I was quite proud of the fact that I got I was rather jaded. Like I wasn't very impressed by any celebrities. And when I lived in Washington, D.C., my wife worked at the Shakespeare Theater. So she was seeing celebrities all the time. So we didn't care. I've only geeked out hard one time. And it's when I almost literally ran into Congressman John Lewis, who passed away
Okay.
last year. I was going to the Capitol building to interview somebody for when I was working in grad school
Okay.
for I was working on, and I go to open the door and it swings open and it's him, and he has his staff with him and he's talking and they've got clipboards and they're writing, and he holds the door open for me and I went, oh, thank you, sir. And as I said, sir, I looked down and I went, oh my God, you're John Lewis, and I leapt back and like hit the wall. I'm like, oh my God. And he laughed, so I heard he crossed the street and I could still hear his laugh. He just laughed the whole way across the street. I'm like, I lost it. I'm like, because Martin Luther King was one of my heroes, and this guy worked with King all the time. So I'm like, that I respect. that's like legit American hero right there, not somebody that was on a TV show or sang a song or something.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So I'm jaded that way. So yeah, yes.
Yeah, I always thought about it like, because the celebrities, they get the celebrity treatment, but at the same time, they're rushed behind everything in the park, so they're not bothered,
Yeah.
so they don't get to see the park itself.
Yeah, they really don't get that great of an experience. I feel bad for them. I don't know if you are familiar with the Marx Brothers. They're, the name they did movies in the 30s and 40s. Some of the funniest movies ever made were done
I've
by the
heard
Marx
the
Brothers.
name.
And you got the movie called Duck Soup by the Marx Brothers, came out in 33 or 32. One of the funniest movies ever. But one of the brothers would wear this giant wig, and he did never speak. And so they were super famous, and his brothers would get stopped for autographs all the time. And I read his autobiography, and he said, I would take off my wig and talk, and nobody knew who I was.
Oh, wow.
So I put the wig on, and everybody was like, oh, God, it's Harpo. And I would take it off. Nobody knew who I was. So I got to have a great private life with my family, and I still could be a celebrity when I wanted it. And he goes, I thought that's a great way to do it.
So be a public celebrity in disguise.
Yeah, yeah. You could just be yourself and no one knows who you are. I read that. I'm like, that seems pretty cool. Then after the Kobe Bryant thing, I'm like, yeah, that would definitely be the way to go.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, definitely.
So let's switch over to your books. How many books have you written?
I've written 3. 2 of them are about the world famous Jungle Cruise, and I'm working on another one right now.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's keeping me busy.
Where can we find these books?
You can find them anywhere. You can find them on Amazon.com. They're called Skipper Stories, and More Skipper Stories are my books about the Jungle Cruise. And then I'm working on one right now that will be out the summer of 2021 called The Jungle
Okay.
Cruise, The Crazy History of Walt's Wildest Ride.
Ah,
So that's what I'm in an office right now out here in Orange County, and that's because we can't go on the campus of Fullerton. It's all locked down. So I found a little office here where I can work while my kids are in school online. And so I'm working on that new history book. But I was approached by Theme Park Press, and they said, would you write a book where you interview one skipper from each decade to kind of
wow.
represent the history of the Jungle Cruise? They pitched me that idea, and I said, how about if I interview every skipper? Because there's no one person that represents that a whole decade.
Mhm.
And every skipper I know, even some skippers I didn't think were particularly funny, have some good stories to tell. So let me interview everybody. And they said, okay. And so that's where Skipper Stories was born. And I just had the best time, because my first book was for my dissertation, and it was all about religion and politics, the 2 things you're not supposed to talk about. And so I'd work on it, and at the end of the day, I'd be like, ugh, and I'd give presentations at history conferences, and everybody's like, ugh, and I go, I know, right? But the Disney stuff is just, I laugh when I'm writing it. I laugh when I'm interviewing people. I just have the best time working on it, and it's a lot of fun. So I'm really enjoying it. I really enjoyed meeting all these skippers. I met skippers from the 60s who worked there way before I was born, and it was like we worked together.
Really?
Like we had the exact same experiences at the exact same spot, like at the Jungle Cruise. Did you ever go in the hippo pool and blah, blah, blah? Yes, that happened to me. Or did you ever have a guest do this at the squirter? I did. And it was like 50 years apart. And we had these same experiences, like working with managers or working with a boat partner that, took a break that was too long or whatever. It was just real. There's this camaraderie that goes across space and time, I guess you could say.
That's really cool.
Yeah, yeah. So those are available on Amazon. I also sell them on my Etsy store. It's Dr. Skipper. Just go to Etsy, and it's Dr. Skipper is the name of my store, and I sell them there where I autograph them for you. So you can get them perfectly autographed, which will in no way increase the value of the book. Yeah, so I ship a lot of those that way as well. And then I go to tiki conventions like Tiki Oasis and places like that, and do talks about Disney history, and sell my books and stuff there. So that's what I really enjoy doing. That's a lot of fun.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
They're pretty big. There's a big one out in Florida called the Hukilau. That's pretty big. But they're
Okay.
big tiki conventions. The big one, Tiki Oasis, is in August in San Diego every year, and there'll be 6, 7, 8,000 people there. It's just they
Wow.
take over this whole like hotel convention area, and everyone's wearing Hawaiian shirts and drinking Mai Tais, and it's just fun. And like Disney fan conventions and things, those are just a blast. Yeah.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, there's a niche for everything, right? No matter what you like, there's a niche of people that also like that.
Absolutely.
That is the great thing about the internet is you can find that niche of people that also like those things that you do.
Unless you invent something and then you have to get a bunch of people to like it with you. That's,
Well, there's that. Yeah, that's true.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
the only exception. But
yeah, yeah, yeah.
have you ever had any guests do anything crazy on your boats, like try and jump out or like touch some of the props or?
Not so much with me. We've had a boat where a guest was on drugs, oddly enough, who would have
Oh,
known, who stood up and said, I'll save you. And they started taking off their clothes and jumped in the water and tried to swim through the hippo pool. So
ooh,
my buddy just called security and drove to the dock. But the guy got out of the hippo pool and he ran to the front of the attraction waiting for his mom. And so security comes up and they're like, well, what's going on? And my buddy goes, it's him. And he's sitting there just soaked, just sitting at a bench across on the Jungle Cruise. And you can see the trail of water from where he came from. And he's just sitting there. He's like, no, it wasn't me. my buddy, the skipper's like, yeah, that's him. And his mom's like,
yeah,
yeah, it's him. Yeah, he was impaired through some illegal medication. So,
wow,
uh, never had a lot of trouble there. At the Jungle Cruise, people were normally pretty chill. Yeah. Or bored. If it was the summer and it was the middle of the day, it was a place to sit for 10 minutes, I think.
yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you ever have, like you said, you had a malfunction with the boat? Did you ever have any of the malfunctions with the props, the animatronics and stuff?
Uh, Sometimes, yeah. And the nice thing about Jungle Cruise is it didn't matter. Like you could just keep going. Like there were times where the power would go. It happened once or twice when I worked there, at least once, where there'd be a brownout or the power would just shut down in Anaheim. And Disney had backup generators that would kick up, but they had to restart all the rides. Jungle Cruise, we just kept going.
Huh?
Like, because the boats are self-powered. Well, the
Right.
animals don't move. We're like, one guy's like, the animals don't move. We're like, go faster. And so we would just go faster. And everybody went to Jungle Cruise because we were the only ride that was open.
That's
And
funny.
we were moving bodies because we're like, cut this joke and cut this joke and cut that joke because they're like the elephant that squirts water is not going to come up because there's not powered. So just keep going and we'll keep the guests happy. And it was during the day, so we didn't worry about lighting. So you could be a little more chill working at Jungle Cruise because you knew you could still run things pretty much no matter what happened.
Okay.
Yeah. And you were kind of like separated from the rest of the park. Sometimes you'd be there all day and you would just see a handful of people and you thought, well, it's not a very busy day. And you'd walk out into Main Street and you couldn't cross the street because it was just this crush of people. And they're like, oh yeah, the park's been closed for an hour because it's overcrowded. So they closed the gates. And you're like, huh, I've been in the jungle
Wow.
all day. I saw 30 people at a time. I had no idea it was busy today.
Right.
Yeah, it was kind of nice being there, but also being kind of removed from that world. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Did you ever have any people on the ride who had altercations with each other?
Uh, at grad night, I've had other friends that did it. At grad night, I had kids from a rival high school that started screaming at each other. I don't know. Do they do grad night in Florida?
Yeah, they usually do it at it depends. My year we did Universal, but like 2 years before me they did Disney. So I guess it probably just
Okay.
depends on the school.
Okay. Disney's changed it out here a lot, but it used to be they would shut the park down, empty it out, and then invite everybody in for grad night.
Yep.
And those were rough. Those were some of the roughest nights I've ever worked. It got to the point where I traded those shifts away to rookies that didn't know better.
Oh no.
Because you'd get there at 11 and you'd work till 6, and it was just rough. Because some boats, they would be yelling and screaming and throwing things and wanting to fight, and then the next group would be like a bunch of kids that just want to make out and smoke pot. And then it was just like you never, like the first grad night I ever worked, I get in the first boat and these people it was 2 girls who I thought were going to fight. Like their boyfriends had to keep them apart because they were from rival high schools. And they were screaming at each other and cussing and yelling. And I'd only worked there like 3 months and I just hit the throttle and we went through fast. And they were just, it was like, I was afraid a fight was going to break out. I was genuinely like afraid. We get to the dock and the guy goes, you can do any jokes. And I went, everybody out, everybody out. I pull the boat forward and I'm thinking, I can't do this. I can't do this job. The next boat I pull up, they load it in. I tell one joke, they all start to laugh. I'm like, huh. And this boat laughed at anything I said they thought was hysterical. When I got to the end, they all stood up and gave me a round of applause and people were shaking my hand. I'm like, so I get bumped out of the boat and the manager comes over and is like, so how's your first day going? And I went, I have no idea. Just, I had the very worst boat I've ever had and the very best boat I've ever had back to back.
Isn't that weird?
It was really weird. And then by like 3 o'clock, they're all asleep. They just want to lay in the boat and sleep.
Mhm.
So yeah, but I did not enjoy working grad nights. Oh, and one night, the manager's trying to get us to go to this bar that opened at 7. Oh, dude, we're done at 6. This bar opens at 7. I'm like, I'm not drinking at 7 in the morning.
Yeah,
No,
no.
you got to go. There's this guy that smokes through a hole in his neck. And I'm like, you saw him? Yeah, last year. I go, if last year he was smoking out of a hole in his neck, he's probably not there anymore.
No.
he's probably not. Yeah. So, but those,
Wow.
yeah, but it's remarkably safe there. But it was just that one night was just crazy. Yeah.
That is not something I would wish to deal with. I can't imagine how you felt.
Yeah,
It just kind of ruins the boat ride for everybody else that's just there for the boat ride.
it does.
Yeah.
And that would, the one part I would have to deal with is I would get really angry and frustrated that now you've ruined this ride for everybody. And I had to like work on, all right, calm down. That's, don't, if I get mad, that's not making the situation better.
Right.
I would like, you're ruining this for everybody. And then everybody would be like, whoa, Skipper, calm down. What's your problem?
Yeah.
So
My problem is you.
yeah. So I realized, all right, if you can use comedy to kind of deal with this, that's the way to do it. And it got to the point where other trainers would have me come teach their trainees how to deal with hecklers.
Wow.
I got to be really good at because you get a lot of hecklers at Jungle Cruise, and you could shut them down pretty quick. It got to be a lot of fun after a while. Once you've done it, for a couple of years, you're like, come on, give me some hecklers. I want to make somebody cry. Let's do this.
Oh no.
I want to.
They got that bad?
Oh yeah, sometimes. Yeah. It was usually like junior high or high school kids who thought they knew every joke.
Mm.
And so they'd yell out a joke and you would just switch to a different one. And usually they'd catch on, oh, if I yell a punchline, they're just going to do a different joke.
Yeah.
And usually the smarter ones would catch on that you just don't. You're like, you're not ruining it for me, or you just look like an idiot. And people don't know why you're yelling that out.
Right. Other people on the ride don't get it.
Yeah, they don't know the punchline you're yelling out, and I'm doing a different joke, so it just looks weird. Yeah.
So how many people have you made cry?
Just one.
Oh, only one.
Just one. Yeah, it's not a very. I didn't put it in the first book because I look so. It's not a proud moment for me, so I put it in the second book. I'm like, all right, I'll put it in more Skipper stories. There. So I held on to that one for a little bit. Yeah, because it was one heckler that he just would not calm down, and just was swearing on the boat and yelling at girls to take off their tops, and just, I mean, nothing that was even remotely even trying to be funny. And I would go through all the stages that I taught my trainees how to do to deal with hecklers, and he would ramp back up after I'd done that. And at the end of the ride, he did it again, and I just unleashed on him, just unleashed. And people on the boat started laughing, and then he burst into tears. I'm like, you're going to cry? You're going to cry? You were a tough guy a minute ago, now you're going to cry? And then I went, wow. And then the whole boat looked at me, and their eyes got big, and I went, and I've gone too far. and I'm fired. So I told my buddies, well, if I get fired, that's the night. And I didn't, so thank God. So
sometimes you have to shut people down.
Right? So, yeah. But usually hecklers, most of the time, they think they're having fun like you're having fun. And I want to be part of the fun too. And so you can't be like, no, you suck. Because then they're like, I was having fun. So you got to be like, hey, this is having fun, but you don't really have to talk a lot right now. You got to realize what they're trying to get out of it, and then either like, hey, thanks for helping, or you had to be gentle with them, I guess.
Yeah. And hope they didn't do it to somebody else.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
How do you, I don't know if there's a question on how you would deal with like a crying baby or like a screaming child, but how often did that happen?
All the time.
Yeah?
Yeah. And it's one of the things you just hate. You're like, can't you shut that baby up? Like, is there something you can do? And then I had kids. And my first daughter loved the Jungle Cruise. My second daughter would make it halfway through, and then when she was an infant, and then just scream her head off.
Oh.
And I'm like, I've become the thing that I've hated. And so I wouldn't go a lot when I had my youngest daughter. And I'm like, all right, she's like a year and a half old. She's better. I take her on the ride. by the time we got to the hippo pool, just screaming and shaking bloody murder. And I would look at
Wow.
my friend, I'm like, I am so sorry. Like, she will not take a bottle. She just wants out. And so, yeah. And so I realized, oh, some parents can't. There's nothing you can do about it.
Right.
When your kid is, gonna cry, they're gonna cry. Yeah. So
Okay.
when I worked there, you're like, oh, this sucks. But when you're a parent, you're like, oh, I'm sorry.
You're the one that's sitting there like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I wish I could like, you know,
Yeah. And I think I felt twice as bad. I'm like, I used to so judge people for this exact same thing. And now I realize, yeah, there's nothing you can do, really.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. If they're little, you can give them a bottle. But when they're a year and a half, that's not happening.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Is there anything about the Jungle Cruise that you wish you could change?
Wish I could change. The pay, because if it paid better, I'd probably still be there. It was a lot of fun. The people that I'm closest with today are still all Jungle Cruise people.
Hmm.
Um, it's most of the people I talk to on a daily basis are all people that I knew there. I was talking to two different guys today online, and they're both Jungle Cruise skippers that I had worked with, and they've gone on to different careers, but we're still just chatting. So I think yeah, if it paid better, I would have stayed there a lot longer. If I wish that the skippers were given more freedom to be really funny, because the company, at least at Disneyland, has really clamped down, and at Disney World, every Jungle Cruise boat was about the same.
Hmm.
Like, they're almost identical in the jokes they do, and I thought, that's wow, that's not good. Because when I worked there, the worst thing you could do was just do the same trip every time and be monotonous. And then I
Right.
realized at Disneyland, it's going the same direction, where it's kind of always the same. And that's not what Walt wanted. And I know for a fact it's not what Disney, the company, wants. It's the local managers that are kind of pushing that on skippers because they don't want to get complaints from guests that hear something that offends them or makes them upset.
Mm.
So I think they've made the decision that boredom is better than getting a complaint.
Yeah. I guess it
That's
depends
my,
on the person.
right? Yeah, and even when stuff that's not like, it's not being racist or sexist or inappropriate, just any kind of joke, and someone will
Hmm.
just get upset about it. And they thought, nope, we'll just keep this as boring as humanly possible. Because I know some
Sucks.
skippers that work at Disneyland now, former students of mine, and I've seen a couple of them do boats when it's just me and a couple other people on there, and they freaking kill it. And it's all clean, it all fits, it's all Disney stuff, but they're amazing. And then you fill the boat up with people, and they have to go back to the same stupid jokes that everybody's already heard 10 times. And that's when I realized, okay, they're really being forced to do this when
Hmm.
they're much funnier. They're being much funnier than they're being allowed to be, which is a shame. But it's like a pendulum that swings back and forth. And right now it's don't ever be funny, and it'll swing back the other way. When I
Oh
was
God.
there, it was chaos. So I think me and my group of people may be part of the reason that the clampdown came,
Oh no.
because we were, that's in both skipper stories, just the wild stuff we would do. Um, a buddy of mine read the first book and goes, I could always tell the ones that were your stories. I'm like, how? He goes, because it starts with, I can't believe I didn't get fired. Like, yeah, we did a lot of wild stuff like that. So, like, we used to go out in the jungle a lot. You like go out and hide and jump out at people and do things. And then I asked some
Really?
Florida skippers, they're like, you never ever go out in the jungle in Florida. I'm like, why? You get fired? They're like, no, there's like snakes and spiders in there
Yeah.
that are, it's dangerous in that jungle. We're like, oh, okay, in Anaheim, there's spiders, but they're little spiders. There's
Oh.
no snakes or nothing like that in there. So yeah, they don't go out in the jungle and do pranks for different reasons, but theirs seems pretty smart.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a few places in different parks where you walk by and it's a nice little lake with a spring and then you see the sign and it's like there are or can be alligators and snakes. Watch out. And you're like, "Oh, I guess I forgot I was in Florida."
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't get to see, I haven't seen a single alligator since I've been there. All the times I've been to Florida, never seen one out in the wild.
Hmm.
Oh, you broke up. There you go. Yeah.
There we go.
So I feel like I've been gypped.
Uh,
Well, maybe next time I'll see one.
there you go.
I saw some in Louisiana.
Really?
I went on a trip through the bayou and saw some, but you'd think in Florida I'd see some, and I haven't seen any yet.
They're not as common as everybody thinks they are.
I guess not, right? So, yeah, what are you
And
gonna
I
do?
mean, Orlando was at one point just a big swamp before all the
Yeah.
tourism. So,
And I spent a week, actually two different times. I've spent a week in like Tampa Bay, St. Petersburg area,
mm,
and
nope.
no, I was there either. No, just Buccaneers fans. That's all I saw.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Give me just 1 second.
sure.
There's a guy that comes by and he does the bass music and it's like boom boom. I
Oh,
just didn't want that on here.
okay.
So going back to kind of the toning everything down, there's a restaurant in Hollywood Studios called the Primetime 50s Cafe. Have you ever been there?
No, I haven't.
So obviously the name is kind of self-explanatory. It's set in the 50s. So like you walk in and it's like mom's old kitchen and like the food is like, oh, mom's leftovers and you get like three different items. So it's really cute. And it's changed so much from when I was young. When I went there, I was probably like 6 or 7 and we went with my whole family and it was obviously very strict.
Huh.
Clean your plate or you don't get dessert. Fold your hands in your lap, put your napkin down, no elbows on the table, like that kind of thing. It was fun.
Yeah.
And when I was little, my uncle goofed off and they made him stand up in front of the restaurant and sing and dance "I'm a Little Teapot." Great.
That's funny.
But now you go and they're still quirky and like they're still joking with you, but it's nothing like it used to be. And I asked
Yeah.
them why, and they said it was because so many people complain
Yeah.
about like getting told what to do. And I'm like, well, that's the whole theme of the restaurant. Like, and they're like,
Yeah.
yeah, but people just want to come in and have food after a long day at the park. And I'm like, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. People react, and people don't always know what they're getting into or what they're doing. This is a true story. I had a boat, right? And the guests get off, and I watched one lady walk right over to the manager and is like pointing her finger. And I'm like, and usually I knew, I'm like, oh, yeah, I shouldn't have. Yeah, okay. But I'm watching her, I'm like, I did nothing. I was so, there's nothing she has on me. And she was mad. So I'm trying to think,
Really?
did I say something? I mean, he walks over to me and he like calms her down. She walks away and he comes over and he's laughing. He's like, you know what she said? She goes, everyone here is working so hard and taking it seriously. And that guy, David, thinks everything's just a joke.
What?
He just told jokes the whole trip. He
Yes, exactly.
he goes, so I told her, ma'am, didn't you find it unusual that there was a rhino chasing guys up a pole? Didn't that maybe give you a clue that it
Yeah.
was supposed to be? Because I saw him like motioning, and I'm like, what is happening? Yeah. So there are people that get on Jungle Cruise and are like, well, what is this? Don't tell joke. Why are you telling jokes the whole time? We're like, that's what this is.
Yeah.
This is jokes. Yeah.
I mean,
It's
the first time I rode Jungle Cruise, I was like, there's jokes on this? Like, I enjoyed it. And I was like, I did not expect this. I like it.
yeah. Yeah. Should be right. Good a good fun time. Yeah.
Because, like, you go on Big Thunder Mountain, it's a roller coaster. You go on Space Mountain, a roller coaster. Like, all these other rides, you don't expect anything but what you think you'll get. And you go on Jungle Cruise and you're like, oh, jokes, something different.
Yeah, it's the only place at the park where you get to spend 10 minutes alone with a cast member.
Yeah,
And they have control of you for 10 minutes and you get this one-on-one relationship. It's the only place in any Disney park where you get that. And their whole job is to keep you entertained.
yep,
And so it's a whole different animal, which usually breeds a whole different kind of person that works there.
obvious.
Yeah. Yeah.
And those, like we mentioned earlier, those are the kinds of rides that I miss, where you have the interaction with the person. Because like you used to have the Jaws and the confrontation at Universal, and you were with the cast member for the entire ride. And now
Yeah.
you go and you sit and you look at a TV screen, and
Yeah. Yeah. That got old after a while
it
at
did.
Universal Studios Hollywood. Yeah.
I don't even think there's any rides there now that you have a cast member, like besides Jungle Cruise, obviously. But I don't think there's any rides at Universal that you have a full cast member for the entire experience. Trying to think. No, I don't think there are. It's disappointing. It really
Yeah.
is.
I don't think there are. Yeah. They don't like to do it because it's expensive.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
gotta pay
then
more people.
yeah, and it's staffing and yeah. Anytime you have guests interacting with customers, there could always be problems. And so, yeah,
That's true. I will say I haven't personally done it, but the Velociraptor experience in Jurassic Park, there's obviously a staff member there, and
Yeah,
but that's in a meet and greet kind of thing. That's not a ride.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I wish there were more of that.
I saw that from a distance. Yeah, I interviewed a former skipper that worked at Universal Studios Hollywood, and I go, "So what do you do now?" He's, "Oh, I work, Universal Studios. What do you do?" I'm a Velociraptor tamer.
Yeah,
And he looked at me like, "Isn't that cool?" I'm like, "I don't know what that is." And he's like, "You haven't been to the park?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "Oh my God, it's so fun." I'm like, "Okay," because I have no idea what you're talking about. So when I went, I'm like, "Oh, that's pretty cool." You get to introduce people to the Velociraptor who may or
yeah,
may not try to eat your children. It's pretty cool.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's a lot of fun watching kids run away in fear.
Right?
Is it? I don't know. Maybe that's just me being a bad person.
Yeah.
So, do you have any other secrets about the park that you wish to share or can share?
I want to know. What's weird is that most everybody, it's probably the same for people growing up in Orlando, maybe, but for like everybody growing up in Orange County, almost everybody wanted to work there at some point, work at
Mhm.
Disneyland. And almost everybody I've interviewed was like, that was one of the best jobs I've ever had. And
Wow.
I loved it, loved it, loved it, loved it. Wish it paid better. I'd still be there, but really liked it. So yeah, no other secrets other than that. Uh, yeah, I sometimes I wish I'd worked more rides so I could have more stories about different things. But all I wanted to do was that Jungle Cruise and occasionally the Tiki Room, and that was a blast. Yeah, no, it's just an endlessly fun place to work with a ton of
Very cool.
stories. Yeah.
Thinking about working at other rides real quick, I'm sure like I wouldn't want to work at like the Tower of Terror or something because I'm sure like people throw up a lot on that ride, and I don't think I'd want to deal with that.
Oh yeah. Oh, you don't
So,
have.
no?
No, you shut it down and you call janitorial and say code V, and then they come clean it up.
Ah,
That's the nice thing. So maybe you don't want to work janitorial, although they get paid more
yeah,
than we did, and that's why,
yeah,
because they
yeah.
had to clean up stuff. So they had a very important job, and they should have been paid more. So, yeah, we had kids throw up in the boat,
That was my next question.
and you're like, and pee in the boat, and poop in the
Really?
boat. Oh yeah, a friend of mine had dad took his son, pulled his pants down, and held him over the water, and the kid was just peeing into the river as the boat was driving. And my friend stopped the boat. He's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Well, he has to pee."
So hold it.
But he's a little kid, and I'm
Yeah,
like, "All right, but still." But kids will throw up, and you just park the boat, call code V, and then they come and put dust on it or whatever that magic stuff is, and they clean it up. And about 15, 20 minutes later, you get your boat back.
magic Disney dust.
Magic Disney vomit dust, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Are there any rides that you don't like going on at the parks?
I
Ones that you
don't
maybe
like.
skip?
Um, I usually don't like the rides that just go that shoot you straight up and then drop you straight down. That's why I didn't like Tower of Terror, but
Okay.
I go on it because the one in Florida is amazing. Um, like we'd all seen a video of the one in Florida where you go up the elevator, but then you leave and you go around the
Yep.
building and then you get back in, right? So when they built the one in Florida or in Anaheim, we were all talking about it because we got to test it before it opened to the public. I'm like, oh, my buddy's like, it's so cool. You leave the elevator, you go around, and it's so great. So we're riding in it, and the doors open. We're like, and then we see the scene. We're like, oh, here we go. And then the doors close. And then we start to drop.
Oh,
And then after that sequence is over, the doors open, and thank you for riding. And we're like, but we don't get to. And the manager's like, see, I told you. And it's like, evidently, they cut it to save money because that part breaks down a lot. So
really?
when they moved it to California, they decided not to add it. And so people that know about the Florida version are like, oh, ah, the
Well,
Florida
that's
version.
kind of a disappointment. I wanted to go on that one. I know
Yeah,
it's
so,
Guardians of the Galaxy right now.
which is super cool. The Guardians of
Yeah.
the Galaxy version is cooler than the Tower of Terror version. Yeah,
Really?
yeah. The animatronics are very cool. Yeah, and when you're in line for the one in California, they have like because it's the collector, right? He has all of his
Hmm.
stuff everywhere, and one of the things he has is a giant Yeti, and
Ah,
it was taken from my friends like, oh, that's from the old one from the Matterhorn. And I said, not only is that the old one from the Matterhorn, that was actually built for the Jungle Cruise, and it used to be a gorilla.
really?
That it was a gorilla from the Jungle Cruise in the 60s. And when they brought in new gorillas, they took that one out. They put a new body on it of a Yeti and stuck it in the Matterhorn where it sat for 20 years. I go, but that's an original Jungle Cruise gorilla.
That's
Now
really cool.
it's third attraction. I love when Disney does stuff like that. Yeah, love it. You can see little weird history things. It must be annoying to go to the park with me because I'm always telling my friends and family weird little
I like that. I
weird
love that.
stuff
I
like
made
that.
friends with a Universal VIP guide just so I could get that kind of information.
Oh, that's cool. Oh, that must be super cool.
He
Yeah.
doesn't work there anymore, obviously, but obviously he knows the knowledge still if I go with him.
Yeah, he can tell you all the stuff now that he doesn't work there anymore. So yeah.
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 I would love to go to the parks with you and get all of the information and not just over the computer.
Be a blast.
Oh man, I had a question I was gonna ask you. I forgot what it was. It'll come
So,
back to me.
all right.
How much more time do you have?
I don't know.
I don't want to. I don't want to keep you
I'm
all
just here in
day.
the office working on my book. I've just been writing all day.
Okay.
And I reread the introductions to my book so I could remember what I wrote about. So
So much knowledge.
these are my beat up copies that I take when I do talks. So they've got, pages dog-eared for stories or whatever. Yeah.
Okay.
What else? Yeah. What else do you want? Anything other questions you got for me?
Oh man, I'm sure I have tons of questions. They're just not coming to me right now.
Oh, hate that. Been there.
So what's the main difference between Orlando and California that sways you one over the other? Like you said, you say you like the Disneyland better, but is there anything that you strictly come to Orlando for?
What I'm looking forward to about going back is the amount of space there is at the Disneyland Resort, the Disney World Resort.
Mm-hmm.
It is just stunning. Like we would leave our hotel. It's like a 15-minute ride to get to whatever park we were going. And then let's go to a different park. And it was like a 15, 20-minute ride to get somewhere else.
Yep.
Where at Disneyland, you have to walk down Main Street and it's literally 110 yards away, 150 yards away is the other entrance.
Really?
Walk from one gate right to the other. And then when you're going between those gates, you can look off to the side and there's Harbor Boulevard and the hotels and the 7-Eleven, and it's just, you're in the middle of the city. I guess they wanted to do the Magic Band where you can do the gate, the little, I know it's got Disney words, I don't know what they're called, but you get when you get the admission where you just kind of touch the little Mickey shaped ball thing, and they wanted to get rid of the gates and stuff. And they wanted to do it at Anaheim, and they're like, no, you can't, because we're right in the middle of a city. Like walk off the street and just run in the gate.
Yeah.
Where that's not going to happen in Florida. So that's what I loved about it. Loved the space that's there, and so everything can be bigger, and it's not just kind of packed on top of each other. I love that. And if I can go really random, one thing I really love that I missed from my years living in DC when we were in Florida, I missed Waffle House. Oh my God, Waffle House so much. Yes. I used to talk about Waffle House so much to my girls. They're like, is it that good? I'm like, no, it's not that good. It's just something you got to go. And so the nearest one to our house is right outside of Phoenix, Arizona.
Oh,
and so
wow.
Last year, like late 2019, my girls had a 3-day weekend. So I'm like, we're going to Waffle House tomorrow. So we woke up and we drove 6 hours and had Waffle House in Arizona. And they're like, Dad, this was a long. So we called it the longest drive for one bit. Like we were doing a bit. It's like, is this a bit? So yeah, and then we got a hotel room and then drove home the next day.
Did they enjoy it a little bit at least?
They did, mostly because it was just, wow, we drove, I guess it was like 5 hours just to go to the Phoenix from our house just to have Waffle House. Yeah. So but I missed that. I missed the space that's there in Florida and just how expansive it is. And that's just because in California, they're just everything, the hotel and downtown Disney, it's all just packed right there. And so if you want to get away from the crowd, good luck, because that's not going to happen. Where, well, at least when we were there that week, it's like, hey, Disney, Magic Kingdom's a little crowded. Let's go. And so we go to one of the other parks where it used to be if Disneyland was crowded, you could go to California Adventure and there was nobody there. But now it's just almost as crowded as Disneyland.
Wow.
So that's the one thing I actually liked a lot better about Florida. Yeah. So
okay.
I told my girls, we'll stay in a nice Disney hotel and we're going to do it up. And so, yeah, been saving money in a special account just to take my family on a trip there.
There you go.
So I'm looking forward to going. Yeah, no one in my family's been to Florida, so it'll be their first trip.
Oh, I hope they enjoy it.
Yeah, I've been down there a bunch of times, mostly for history conferences, and it's more fun to go for Disney World than it is to go to a history conference.
I love history, but I would say it's probably more fun for Disney.
Much more fun. Yeah, yeah.
I remember my question now. Do you know where all of the hidden Mickeys are?
Some of them,
Mm,
some of them, and sometimes they'll change them, and you don't always know they do.
really?
But like I know where they are in the Haunted Mansion. I know where it is at Indiana Jones. What we used to, and this is in one of the Skipper Stories books too. We used to hate when people were on really aggressive when they were on hidden Mickey hunts, because they would get on your boat and just start, "Where's the hidden Mickey? Where's the hidden Mickey?" Right in the middle of one of your jokes. And so I had this one group that we were warned, okay, there's a bunch of people doing, it's a big event, just so you're warned. And I only had one boat where they were really obnoxious about it. At every scene, is it in here? Is it in? Like you enter like the elephant pool. Is it there? Is it there? There was this one guy. So I kept every scene we leave. I'd go, "Did you see it? Did you catch it?" It wasn't there. It wasn't there. And so I kept doing it because I knew where it was, and I figured if I did it enough, he would stop looking for it. And so
Right.
I go, "Did you see it?" "No." "Oh, it really was. It really was there." And they're like, "No, back up." I go, I can't back up.
Get back in line.
Get back in line. So we were not always giving you the best customer service, but we were having a good time because we got to do this 30 more times today. So we're going to, entertain ourselves a bit. Yeah.
That's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So, yeah, the hidden Mickey thing, we weren't, at least I don't think we were into it a lot because some people were very
Super about it.
Yeah. Yeah. But then in some of my artwork, I put hidden Mickeys on it. So there,
Oh, now you got somewhere else to look for them.
right. Yeah. My buddy does them on my book covers. He'll throw a hidden Mickey in there. And so it's, yeah, we participate in it now that we don't have to deal with it, I guess.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one thing that I heard that I know has happened here in the Haunted Mansion, has it happened there in the Haunted Mansion? People will bring the remains of their loved ones on the ride and like spread them on the ride. Have you ever heard of anybody doing that there?
I have, yes. And it shuts the ride down immediately because they're watching it with cameras and you just see a big puff of dust. So they shut the ride down and they get so I had a friend that goes, "Yeah, if you want your relatives to get vacuumed up immediately, go throw their remains in the Haunted Mansion," because they'll just, and it's a hazmat thing. So they shut the whole ride down and they come in the full PPE suits and vacuum it up and scrub it, but it'll be shut for hours.
Wow.
Yeah. That's why the trick is when you die, don't get cremated, you got to get stuffed and then just have your family stick you in the Haunted Mansion and then just sit there in a chair. That's the trick. That's what you got to do. That's the way around that.
That's an actual hitchhiking ghost.
Right? Exactly. See, you just got to make sure you die dressed like someone who would be in the Haunted Mansion and you're set.
Oh man, I wonder how hard would that be to get somebody in? I'm never gonna do that, but I don't recommend anybody else do that.
Oh, someone's gonna listen to this. I'm gonna bring a dead body to Disneyland.
No, we don't endorse that.
I heard this podcast. It said I should bring a dead body. Like, nope.
Oh man.
Nope. Yeah.
Yeah, I never understood why people did that. They know they're gonna get in trouble, and I heard that's isn't that a lifetime ban from the park?
That I don't know. I know you're not allowed. You're not supposed to get they don't do weddings at the park, but I know a bunch of people that have gotten married at the park.
Really? Like they bring their own minister?
Yeah, I had a friend that did it at the backside of water.
Oh.
And she was telling me all about it. She's like, and the guy was really nice. And I said, "Oh, what was the name?" And so she told me the name of the guy, and it was a buddy of mine. I'm like, "Oh yeah, you did this wedding." He's like, "Yeah, how do you know?" I'm like, "Because they're here and you made their whole day and they're very excited about it." So yeah, but they worked it out with the lead of Jungle Cruise, and he spaced the boats out so they would have time. And at the backside of water, the boat stopped and they stood up and did the ceremony, and the boat was filled with their friends, and it was very cool.
That is very cool.
Yeah, that's a Disney magical memory right there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
See all these people getting engaged, but to say you got married at the backside of water, that's rare.
Right? Yeah, that marriage is going to last forever. All right, I got 5 more minutes before I got to head out.
Okay. So Usually my last question to everybody is, and I'm sure I'll think of more, and maybe we can do this again in the future because this has been
All right.
awesome. My last question is, do you have any advice for anybody that wants to become a skipper?
That wants to become a skipper.
Yeah.
Um, my advice is, if you really want to do it, go to the park and talk to a lead at the attraction
Okay.
and tell them you want to work there, and maybe talk to maybe an Adventureland manager and tell them you want to apply to work at Disney and you've always wanted to be a skipper since you were a kid, and see if you can use their name as a reference when you go apply, because
Okay.
it's not that Disney's mean. They remember, like we said earlier, they will just ship you wherever they need bodies.
Yep.
And it's not you personally. I just have to hire 10 guys to work pirates today, and you're guy number 5, so guess where you're going. But if you walk in, oh, Bill Smith, said I could be a skipper and he'll vouch for me. They're like, well, okay, if this lead or manager said it. So that's how I did it twice, in '96, and then when I came back in 2001, that's how I swung it.
Okay.
Was walking in and saying, because the second time I was like, yeah, there are no openings. I'm like, oh, no, call this guy. Here's his card. The manager gave me his card and said it'd be okay. And that funny thing, the manager that let me in worked at the park for another month, and they transferred him to California Adventure, so I never saw him again.
So you just did that perfect timing.
And I'm like, yeah, and I'm like, I owe you so much for being nice enough to lend your name to let me have this job. I owe you so much. I'm like, if he ever calls me and wants me to pick up a shift, I'm gonna have to do it, and I don't care. I will have to do it for this guy.
Yeah.
And then he moved to California Adventure. I'm like, well, all right. So, but he was very, very nice of him. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So that would be my advice.
Okay. Do you
Yeah.
have anything else that you want to plug in? Do your Etsy shop again and stuff?
Yeah. You can just go to Etsy, and my name is Dr. Skipper, Dr. Skipper. I got that name very clever because I was a professor and a skipper. See how clever we are with the names? So clever. So Dr. Skipper, and the books are called Skipper Stories and More Skipper Stories, and you can buy them on Amazon or from my Etsy store, and I will autograph them any way you want. And this summer, maybe in June or July, right before the movie comes out, my new book, The Jungle Cruise, The Crazy History of Walt's Wildest Ride, will be out there. And it covers Disneyland, Disney World, Tokyo Disneyland, and Hong Kong Disneyland. It has all of the Jungle Cruises in it. And after that, I'm going to do another Skipper Stories book that has skippers from Florida, Hong Kong, and Japan, and interviews with them.
Awesome.
So that's going to kind of wrap up the whole series with that last one. But yeah, that's what I'm working on, and I do all my art on Etsy is all, oddly enough, Jungle Cruise based. Who saw that coming? So all right, I'm a man of very limited interests.
Very cool. Any social medias you want to share, or is that all?
Follow me on Instagram. It's Dr. Skipper Marley. Marley, just like Bob Marley, but Dr. Skipper Marley is my Instagram, and you can see all my embarrassing photos right there. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I loved it. Well, I loved having you. Thank you for coming on.
This has been great. I spent all day long just typing and reading books about Mark Davis, so this is a nice break to get out and talk to a human being.
Awesome. Well, I'm very glad I reached out to you, and thank you again.
Oh, sure. Anytime. This was actually a lot of fun. It was fun.
Thank you.
I enjoyed it.